Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Sisters of the Strange. I'm Landrey.
And I'm Shae.
And I also don't think we have any housekeeping this week. Do you have anything?
I have some stuff that I wanted to re-clarify, but we can go into that whenever.
Okay.
I start, I guess. But yeah, otherwise, I don't think I have anything.
I don't either, I don't think.
I felt like there was something that I was going to say, but now I don't remember.
Oh, maybe if there was any audio last week that didn't make sense, we had recorded with a camera, and then I deleted all the footage somehow. And so it still ended up only being audio, but I think I tried to take all that out.
I don't
make
think
it make I think I did pretty good. I tried to take it all out to make it make sense, but
I think it was good.
we have a camera now.
Hi. Hopefully this works again.
Yeah.
Because I keep waving at the camera and then
we'll see. We'll see.
Okay. Are we gonna just go into it?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I've been waiting patiently. My mom keeps trying to talk to me about it, and I'm like, I don't know anything. Stop talking.
Don't tell me anything.
I don't know.
So as far as clarification goes on a couple of things from the last episode, if you listen to it, there were some things that after researching a little bit longer, I had found that it wasn't that they weren't true, but the way that I had conveyed it wasn't really what happened. So in regards to the files that were on the computer originally, the will, the Menendez, and the list files, I had said that they were locked and that they couldn't be accessed. After listening to both computer experts' testimonies, the first guy who looked at the computer said that everything was copied over. So it was there was something in those files, but then it was copied over at some point with nothing.
Okay.
So that there was literally nothing in them.
Yeah, so they basically did a save as, but then it cleared what was there.
Yeah. So that was something. And then what was the other thing that I was going to mention? Oh, I said that Judalon Smith was in the waiting room of the October 31st meeting of the brothers with Oziel. After further research, I found that it seems like either she was only there during the November 2nd meeting, or that she wasn't and she had only found out because Oziel told her after October 31st session.
Okay.
So regardless, she still found out, but she wasn't in the waiting room.
Okay, yeah.
Is what Oziel testified to.
Okay.
So I think that was it on those things that I wanted to re-clarify. I feel like there was one other thing. Oh, the dropping of the evidence at a gas station. Also not true. It was, they drove. That's not true. It's partially true. They drove and dropped the guns and clothes off of Mulholland Drive, which was a residential area kinda, but off of this specific road there was a drop off that kind of had a creek below it or whatever. It was a little cliff, and that's where they put those things. And then they remembered after that they still had the shells, and so they dropped the shells in a gas station dumpster.
Okay.
So just little things like that I was like, oh, I should probably re-clarify.
And I can take this part out if not, but if it is useful, I know one of the things I had messaged and asked, I don't know if you go over it today.
Oh.
About her crawling. How he made a point to say about her crawling away from the couch.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I messaged about that.
No, you didn't message
I
me
messaged
about that.
What did I?
You messaged me about the kneecaps because I had said that they both had wounds to each one had a wound to a kneecap or something like that. And I was like, oh yeah, I'll come back to that. It's really not that important, and it really doesn't. It's not important or relevant, but in my opinion, it seemed like it could have had a little bit of relevancy because they were using the excuse that this was mob or mafia related.
Yeah.
And sometimes that was something that they would do was shoot people in the kneecaps.
Yeah.
So that they couldn't walk.
Okay.
But it wasn't they purposefully shot both parents in the kneecap after they were dead. That did not happen.
Yeah.
But it just so happened that they each had a gunshot wound in that area.
Okay.
So Jose had one in the thigh, and his mom had one right above the knee type thing.
Yeah. I saw the one of his leg.
Mm-hmm.
You can see it in most of the pictures.
Yeah. So yeah, that's all I was going to say about that.
Okay.
Not super really important.
There's a wasp landing on you.
Did it land on me?
It totally did. And we're Back
And
to
we're back.
regularly scheduled programming. There's no longer a third party in here with us.
So we went over the things that I wanted to re-clarify, just so that we were all on the same correct page. And we left off at where the trial started. It started in July, and that things kind of take a turn here. But I wanted to go firstly into more detail of Dr. Oziel's testimony, because he testified before both of the brothers did. And so I just wanted to give y'all his recollection of what had happened.
Deal.
And a little bit about it, who he is as a person. So we're going to go back to October 31st. And this is when Eric tells Dr. Oziel during his confession, like what happened, basically. But again, not why. So I have everything typed out as how it was testified. And if I need to like clarify something, just ask.
Okay.
Because it can kind of get a little bit confusing. Because of the way that things are testified, it kind of goes back and forth. I tried to keep everything really lined up, like in order. But sometimes it's like, oh yeah, and. So anyway. So Oziel testifies that Eric tells him during his confession that their father, Jose, was dominating, controlling, like in a very, very extreme way in their life. And that Jose was also very damaging to their mother, and that she was also very miserable, and that basically he was just impossible to live with. So Eric originally went to Dr. Oziel because he was suicidal and depressed.
Yeah.
And was not sleeping. He was having nightmares. All he could see was, his dead parents, knowing that he was living with this guilt that he killed his parents. And he was just really struggling.
Yeah.
Like he just wanted to be dead so that it would all be over. And he kept dreaming that in his dreams that he would commit suicide and then everything would just like feel better.
Oh.
I also should mention before we get too deep into this that this episode is not going to be suitable for all audiences probably, and that it's going to get pretty gruesome and
Dark,
intense. And we're going to be talking about sexual abuse, child abuse, psychological abuse, all things like that. So just be aware that it's coming. It's going to get really detailed in this episode. So if that's not something that you think you can listen to, then don't. But I'm giving you all the facts, the nitty gritty, down and dirty.
Down and dirty.
So yeah. Anyway, so Eric goes to Oziel and is like, I want to kill myself. This is why I'm here talking to you. He was struggling with the fact that he didn't know if he was going to tell Oziel why he was suicidal, but he felt like he couldn't continue the session with him unless he said something about it.
Yeah.
So Oziel asks, after Eric confessed, he asks him why they killed their mother. And Oziel said that Eric told him that basically they couldn't find a way to not include her in the plan. And that she was so victimized by Jose that they didn't think that they could kill him without killing her, because emotionally she wouldn't have survived without him anyway, because she was just so jacked up.
Yeah.
Because of him.
Yeah.
But she basically did everything he said, just like everybody else. So keep in mind that when I'm telling this part of the story, I'm telling this as Dr. Oziel said it. Okay?
Okay.
So Eric tells Oziel that the plan to kill their parents was discussed approximately a week before the killings. Oziel testified also that Eric told him that they, quote, surprised their parents, and that Eric entered the room first, shooting his father, and then Lyle came in behind him, quote, finishing off the job. Oziel testified that Eric told him that his father said no, and turned away when he walked in the room with the gun, and that his mother was shot second, and she was standing as well, and then fell to the ground. He says that Eric told him that the father died first, and then the mother did not after the first few shots were fired, and then he and Lyle went outside to get more shells and reloaded their shotguns and went back in, and Lyle killed their mother with that last shot to her face.
Yeah.
Oziel says that Eric told him that his mother was trying to crawl on the floor and was moaning. Oziel states that Eric described the scene as, quote, blood and tissue all over the room. Eric tells Oziel that they dumped the shotguns off Mulholland Drive, about 250 feet off the road, and then he just kind of like covered them. Like he didn't really like bury them or anything. He just kind of like covered them with like leaves, sticks, and stuff that were just there. And then he basically said that Eric was telling him because his grief was so overwhelming, and he had to tell him, but he was worried about what Lyle's reaction was going to be that he had confessed to Oziel.
Yeah.
So this is what Dr. Oziel's saying. So then, after this initial confession, Oziel asking Eric a bunch of questions about what happened, Oziel called Lyle to come to his office. He says that he had asked Eric's permission to call him first and said, I think that he needs to be here. Y'all should have this conversation in my presence. So Oziel calls Lyle and says, your brother has told me everything. Then he said that Lyle told him he'll be right over, and he arrived approximately 10 to 15 minutes later. So Oziel recalls Lyle as being extremely upset and menacing, quote, and threatening to him. When he got there, him and Eric got into a bit of an argument about Eric telling Oziel because Lyle felt, betrayed by his brother that he had, told somebody that this had happened. And Eric was basically just telling Lyle like he needed to tell somebody. And Lyle was like, well, why didn't you just come to me? Type thing.
Yeah.
They had this argument. It was basically just between the two brothers, and Eric kind of like got up and like ran out of the room because Lyle was getting, more and more angry, yelling at Eric and things like that. Oziel says that Lyle started to get more agitated and menacing. So Eric was out of the room at this point, and it was Lyle and Oziel together. And Lyle basically told Oziel that he was going to go talk to his brother before he decided that he was going to say anything else to Dr. Oziel, before he wanted to speak anything else about what was going on to him. He was like, I'm going to go talk to my brother first, who's extremely upset. So Lyle leaves the office, and Dr. Oziel followed Lyle as he left the building. Oziel was saying that he was basically telling Lyle that he needed to come back in. Him and Eric both needed to come back in. They needed to continue this conversation. That Oziel was not comfortable with the way that the conversation was going and how it had ended, and that he just felt very in fear. He was scared that the brothers were threatening to him. More specifically, Lyle, but he was afraid that something was going to happen because of the way that they both were so upset after this had taken place.
Weird. Okay.
So he's in fear of his life. Okay. He follows Lyle out of the office.
That's what I do if I'm fearful of my life. I follow who I'm fearing.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So they, are having a little bit of a conversation, and Oziel says that there was some words said, and Lyle turns to him and shook his hand and said, good luck, Dr. Oziel. And then was out of his presence and had walked to Eric's Jeep where Eric was. That was the first threat that he had testified to.
So threatening.
That Lyle said, good luck, Dr. Oziel. Okay.
Yeah.
So Oziel testifies that he had heard Lyle and Eric talking outside of the office in Eric's Jeep, and that he heard Lyle say, now how do we kill Oziel? And Eric said, I'm not up to kill anyone else right now, so if you want to do it, then you should do it.
Just not up to it.
So that's what he testified, that this conversation had happened. So the brothers leave. They're no longer in Oziel's presence. Oziel testified that he talked to Judalon Smith, the mistress, about his sessions with the brothers and, quote, what he felt like he should disclose, quote, and that he did not ask her to be in the waiting room for this session, but kept saying, I do not recall if she was there or not when asked. So after the boys left, he called his wife to tell her to get out of the house and to go, somewhere with the kids. And then he was going to go stay at Judalon's that night. And that's when he told her about what had transpired in the office, was when he went to her house afterwards.
Is there any, did his wife or anyone actually testify that they did leave the house that day?
I don't think his wife testified.
Did that actually happen? Or did he make that up afterwards, that he was scared, quote unquote, and actually did ask them to be away from the home? If he actually did ask them to be away from the home, then he might have actually been fearful.
So I don't doubt at all that he was actually fearful.
Yeah.
I don't just really discredit the fact that he was scared, but I think that he was being dramatic about it.
Okay, yeah.
Because after they had the initial conversation and Oziel felt threatened, he called his wife and said, hey, you need to get out of the house, blah, blah, blah. And that he was going to go stay at Judalon's house, whatever. But that he also had called multiple people as well, other people as well when they left, speaking in general terms of if this happened, what should I do type thing, without giving any details is what he said.
Yeah.
So he was told by another psychiatrist that was at one point his supervisor when his license was suspended, and he was basically on probation type. He had to have a supervisor over his practice because his license was suspended.
Yeah, so he's basically having to like work under someone-ish. Yeah.
And his license was suspended because he had been sued for, it was basically like a conflict of interest type thing. So he had a patient that he was seeing that could no longer afford his services. And so this patient was doing construction and like handyman work around his house to pay for his sessions.
Oh, okay.
And so there was some kind of like talk about like extortion and like things like that.
Yeah.
By this patient.
Oh.
It had like turned around and been a problem because it was this conflict of interest. And it like went to court and all these things. So his license was suspended.
Okay. So that's probably another reason he was weird on, because I've always wondered why he didn't just tell anybody.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I asked last time. Like, isn't that illegal? But he's probably already just fearful of his license and everything he's got going for him. So
yeah, because he's kind of a wreck.
Yeah, he sounds like it.
So he also called a police department, but not sure which one, or he doesn't know who he talked to. He just said that he just called some like small town police department somewhere, talked to someone, maybe a desk person, maybe a police officer, and asked them, if someone has committed a crime and confessed, but there's no external evidence, how likely is it that they will be convicted?
Okay.
Why are we doing that? Yeah. So that was what was going through his mind as well. So moving on to the November 2nd session. So the brothers come back in. They come together. They started talking about how Eric felt like he had no choice but to confess, and that there would be some confidentiality. At that time, Oziel had told them that there would be some confidentiality, but that if he was threatened, then there wouldn't be anymore.
Yeah.
And that he was keeping notes and keeping recordings of their sessions. Oziel told them also that he might be of some help to them if it happened to, they would come to trial, and that he may be able to put together some of the factors of the relationship with their parents that could have been attributed to this murder. So he was saying that he could offer them help. If they continue to talk to him, basically. He then told them that he took precautions because of the prior session and that they were a threat to his life. Then Oziel says that Lyle told him that when they were sitting in the Jeep after the first session, knowing that Oziel knew that they were having the conversation about, quote, killing him. And then he said that he decided that it wasn't a good idea because it wouldn't look good if he disappeared too soon. So Oziel says that Lyle basically was like, oh yeah, we had that conversation. We knew you were listening, but then we decided against it because it would look bad if you were.
Yeah, because you're in connection with us too fast, too soon.
Yeah.
Okay.
So he says that Lyle said that. And then Oziel testifies that Lyle then asked Oziel if he was frightened. And Oziel said that he doesn't choose to live in fear. And that Lyle replied, neither did my father.
Okay.
He was terrified of Lyle, basically. And he just knew that these guys were going to come back and just kill him. So, in the November 2nd session, they had other conversations about their relationship with their parents and things like that. And Oziel testified that at one point, Lyle told him that their father taunted them after the Calabasas robberies and told them that they were, quote, so stupid, doing it in a way that left clues for the police to catch them.
Be better next time.
Yeah. He does. Yeah. I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
So when asked about if they had done it for money, they said no, that they didn't, and that they knew that they had been disinherited because their father had told them multiple times beforehand that they were
you get nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they told him that. And then Oziel testified that they told him that they had to kill him because they hated him and he made them feel inferior and that he dominated them and that he could never be pleased. And he being Jose, their father. And that the boys were very, very confused all the time because their father preached morality to them, but then treated them the complete opposite.
Yeah, it was horrible.
Just like with no respect whatsoever. He said, Oziel also says that Lyle said a few days before the murder, Jose told him, quote, you could kill me if you want to, but you won't get any money, end quote. So there's another piece of information that just goes to show that they knew that they weren't going to be getting any money from their parents regardless.
Yeah.
So when talking about their relationships with their parents still, Oziel said that Lyle expressed sadness about killing his mother, but that he never saw her as a maternal figure and that she was basically a pitiful person because she was just completely dominated by their father. So there was a lot of this testimony from Oziel that the brothers kept saying that their father was dominating, that he was domineering, that he was this and that he was that.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes to be later during the brothers' testimonies that Oziel was saying that throughout all of the sessions and that he talked most of the time during the sessions.
Oh, so it was him saying it and them just being like, sure.
And yes,
okay.
pretty much just agreeing.
Yeah.
But not, those words weren't coming out of their mouth, basically.
Yeah, it wasn't their words.
Yeah. And it should also be noted that Dr. Oziel did not dictate nor make voice recordings of these sessions until almost 2 weeks after they had happened. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So to me, that goes back to like his credibility. Like, how much do you remember?
Yeah.
How much are you, saying is true, that's not, or did you say that, or did he say that? Did Eric say that? Did Lyle say that? Type of thing.
Yeah.
That would be hard to do.
I can't tell you what I ate yesterday.
Exactly.
So.
And that he was not taking notes during the sessions. Like, he wasn't writing anything down like during it.
That's like the number one
he
thing
just
a
like went
therapist
back
does.
and was like,
Yeah. Let me see.
Let's see. What do I remember? So that's basically how the second conversation went. And then in regards to Oziel having told them that he had taken these precautions for his life and that if something had happened to him or if he mysteriously disappeared, that the tapes and the notes would be released. Okay. So basically he says that there was a statement made by Lyle to the effects of him saying that he and Dr. Oziel had to become really good friends and that Lyle had to keep a watch out for him to make sure that nothing happened to him. And that, quote, if a robber broke into your house and attempted to kill you, I would see the robber drop and probably see Lyle standing behind him saying, have a good night's sleep, Dr. Oziel. So Oziel says that Lyle said this to him in regards that like Lyle's always going to be around and that if he saw, that something were going to happen to him, like if this robber was going to murder him, that Lyle was going to kill him first so that Oziel didn't die, so that these tapes didn't get out.
Okay.
So he was like, basically, I just have to like keep an eye on you because what if you get in a car accident? What if this? What if that? Like,
yeah,
that's just my little tidbit of information on Oziel's state of mind and his character. He, like I said, had this mistress and the boys had no idea who she was. She had no idea who they were. She hadn't seen them. They had not seen her. There was no like cross of paths of them. But he felt that it was important to tell her for her safety and that it was okay that he told her for her safety because this other psychiatrist said, you can warn whoever you feel is in danger. And so he felt like that she was in danger. And so when he was questioned by the defense and they had asked him, so you didn't want to be with your wife and your children because you thought that you being with them would put them in danger. But you're going to go be with your girlfriend who has no connection to this at all.
Yeah.
But you're going to purposefully put her in danger by staying with her because you were afraid that the brothers were going to follow you. So then you told her.
Yeah.
So you brought this upon yourself, this whole mess of Judulon and the patient confidentiality by telling her and being with her because you could have just left her out of it.
Could have gone to like a hotel by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Something.
Yeah. Very interesting to me. His testimony was, it was like a gajillion days long.
It sounds crazy.
I watched his testimony basically the entire time that I was on vacation last week.
He sounds like he's just jumbled. Like anyways.
Very arrogant, very infuriating. Yeah. So moving on from Oziel's testimony to the next one that has importance. This is the testimony of Diane Vandermolen. She was a cousin of Eric and Lyle. She was older than them. She would frequently come and spend summers with Kitty and Jose and the boys. She would stay for months at a time. She loved the brothers. She loved Jose and Kitty. She thought the world of them. It was like between the times of like 1972 up to 1982, 83-ish. So a couple years at a time. Like not, she wouldn't stay for years at a time, but those summers.
Yeah.
The summers of those years is when she would come and stay. She said as she got older, her relationship with Kitty changed a lot over the years. And that at first it was, it was more normal. She would come and just stay for the summer. They would have fun, whatever. And then as she got older, it turned more into like work and that she was expected to work for them and clean the house and, do all the chores and things like that, which, I mean, that's normal. I mean, ish. I would think, if you're going to be staying with somebody that you're expected to like, help run the house.
Yeah. Whatever the kids are doing, you're part of it.
Yeah. One of the first things that she was asked and that she testified to that she thought was strange is that she said that there were these, quote, private meetings with Jose and Eric before dinner frequently. And that Jose would say afterwards that Eric didn't feel well after he would come out of Eric's room and that he wasn't going to be at dinner and that he would come later.
I don't like that.
Another thing that she recalled more specifically in 1982, Eric was 11 and Lyle was 14, that they would constantly be drilled in tennis all day long, all day. They would drill for 2 to 3 hours. They would maybe like stop to have a drink of water, eat like a snack, and then go back for another 2 to 3 hours. They would take a small break to have lunch, and then they would go again all day long. And then whenever they would come back inside, all 3 of them would go upstairs and shower together when the boys were 11 and 14.
The girl or the dad?
The dad and the boys.
That's too old.
Mm-hmm. So again, in the time that she was there between 1982 and 1983, Lyle, when he was about the age of 14, he would go and take a bath or a shower or whatever. And then after he had been in there for like 10-ish minutes or so, Kitty, the mother, would tell Diane basically that she needed to go and help Lyle wash his hair in the bath.
At 14?
Mm-hmm.
I don't like that at all. Because it's weird to me because I have a 14-year-old in my house and I'm like, just the visceral reaction I'm getting from that.
Oh, well, just wait.
It makes my eyes water because I'm like, that's
Mm-hmm.
horrible.
Yeah. Something else that she recalls that about Kitty and her interactions with the boys is that she would frequently call them stupid, dummy, why are you so dumb, whenever they were doing their homework at ages 11 and 14.
Oh, that's so
and
discouraging.
She says that at this age still, Lyle had at least a dozen stuffed animals and that he, even at 14 years old, was still playing with them and
that's emotionally stunted.
Spending time with them.
I'm not trying to take you off topic too far, but I literally just had to take a like sexual course for like kids. I had to get certified. And one of the things is intellectual. It's intellectual, behavioral. So it's like that. But that's one of the things is either being too old or being too young, like acting too old or not. Mm-hmm. Like you never act your age.
Because you're stunted. Emotionally stunted.
Yes.
Yes. So thank you for that expert witness testimony.
It's horrible.
Mm-hmm. So he had his favorite one specifically was a Cookie Monster stuffed animal. He had all of the Sesame Street stuffies. He had multiple of different kinds of other ones too, but he had the whole group of the Sesame Street and the Cookie Monster was his favorite. So we're going to go back a couple of years. We were just talking about 82, 83. We're going to go to 1976. Diane was 17 years old. And she states that there was an incident where she, Eric, and Lyle had all been downstairs in the basement. They were playing. It was in the evening. They were playing, hanging out. And then the boys were called upstairs by Jose to get ready for bed. So they're called up to get ready for bed. They do their bedtime routine, whatever, get their pajamas on. Lyle came back downstairs to her room and asked if he could sleep downstairs with her in the other bed that was in the basement. She said that she just kind of like brushed him off. She thought initially that he was coming back downstairs to tell her goodnight again, but then he had asked if he could sleep in the other bed. And she just kind of like brushed him off, whatever, thought that he just didn't want to go to bed yet. And he just wanted to stay up, and she was like, no, like you need to go to bed. Then she testifies that he indicated by touching himself in his genital area that his dad and him had been touching each other at 8 years old, and that he wanted to sleep with her because he was afraid to sleep upstairs in his room.
Poor guy.
Yeah, it's really sad. So when this happened, she said that she immediately went upstairs and told Kitty, their mom, what he just told her, and said the exact same thing, and said, like, this is what Lyle did. He like put his hand here and said that he and his dad had been touching each other here.
Yeah.
She was very concerned, but said that Kitty did not believe her and didn't say anything to her, basically just kind of like, and went back downstairs and grabbed Lyle by his arm and took him back upstairs. Diane said that she never talked to anybody else about it because, one, it was never brought back up again, and that she had convinced herself that she was wrong.
Yeah.
And when she was testifying this, she was like very emotional, like trying her darndest to not start crying.
Yeah.
And it's really hard to like watch somebody like talk and recall memories like this, because you can just see.
She just wished she had realized, done.
Like that she could have done more. You know, She felt very guilty for, years. She said that she hadn't thought about it again, but then once all of this stuff started to come out, she just fell apart because she was like, I tried. He came to me. He told me. And I did what I thought that I should have done. And
realistically, there's not much more she could have done.
Right.
So. But that is sad.
So,
I hope she knows that she couldn't have done like a whole lot more.
I know.
I shouldn't hold that forever. My eyes.
She's still alive, and she still is fighting for those boys.
That's good.
So, she also recalls a time again in the summer of 1983 that Eric ran away when he was 12. They couldn't find him in the house. They didn't know where he was.
Yeah.
But he was gone. And that they had lived near a lake. They had like a lake in there, or like a, tank in their backyard.
Mm-hmm.
And they had like a little canoe that sometimes they would take back and forth across the lake. And that whenever they were outside looking for him, that the canoe was not where it was usually parked on the shore. And that she just remembers Jose found him. And whenever he brought him back to the house, he was furious. And Eric was bawling, crying, and they were both soaking wet. So he testified to this as well, that he did do that. He had packed a book bag with some clothes, and he took a lunchbox with some food in it. And he had made it across the tank, and he was sitting. It was dark outside, and he was afraid of the dark. And he was sitting with his back up against a tree, just kind of like sitting on the shoreline. And his father found him. He said he picked him up and threw him against the tree and said, quote, "If you ever do this again, I'll kill you. You're never getting away," end quote. He had said after this that he, at 12 years old, is when he really started to have like his first suicidal thoughts.
Yeah.
Because he couldn't get away from his parents, and he tried.
Yeah.
He said that in the weeks following, he had started a suicide attempt by filling the bathtub with water, and he had broken a razor blade off of a razor and was sitting in the bathtub with it, but he couldn't bring himself to
do it,
to cut himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what he recalls of that situation. Still within Diane's testimony, they had showed a home video from 1980 of the boys and Jose's recorded swimming lessons. I don't know what was on the video. They didn't show it on the court TV. They had like started it, and then it blacked out and came back. And when it came back, Diane is like bawling.
Like, because she's seen it.
She watched it. I mean, they showed it to the court. But they didn't show it on what I was watching. Okay. So I don't know what it was.
Yeah.
But she was crying. Her face was red. Her eyes were puffy. She was like wiping her face with tissue. Like she was just like very, very shaken up by whatever was on this video.
Yeah.
Those are the, key points in her testimony for the abuse that she had witnessed and the strange things that she had witnessed. The next person that his is really short, but they had a tennis coach named Charles Wadlington, and he started coaching the boys in 1981 when Eric was 11 and Lyle was 13. He was their coach for about 5 years before Jose fired him because Charles had basically told Jose that he needed to back off of the boys because he was just too harsh on them and that he could tell that they were no longer happy in the sport of tennis and that he, Charles, would be the coach and Jose should just be their father.
Yeah, just be the parent.
He testified that Jose ran the family like his business. He would give them orders and they would follow them. And that he would legitimately give Kitty a list of things that needed to be done that day. And she was to make sure that they were done. And he said that even if they played well, they were being criticized and there was always something wrong.
Ugh.
He said that he never saw any love or tenderness or anything like that conveyed towards the boys from the parents. Now, I understand taking that with a grain of salt. They only get to see their interactions, most ordinarily, you think you're practicing like a couple times a week.
Yeah.
They were practicing. These boys were practicing every single day.
Yeah.
But still, it's only like a few hours out of the day that he's getting to see them interact. But he testifies still that he never saw any sort of kindness towards these children.
That's so sad.
He said that Jose would still make them practice if they were sick. He didn't care if it was raining outside. If they felt bad, if they were injured, they were still to be practicing. And that he was one of the worst parents that he had ever dealt with. And he always took it one step further and said that Jose was the harshest person that he had ever met. And he was asked if he was so hard to deal with, why did you continue to coach the boys? You could have just, said, I can't do this anymore. And he starts to get choked up and trying not to cry and said that he felt like he was all that they had as a friend.
Yeah, you get attached to the kids and you see if they're going through something hard, you want to be there for them too.
Mm-hmm. And that he kept coaching them, even if he didn't agree with how Jose treated him, because he felt like he was the only good thing that they had at the time. Just really sad.
Yeah.
So those were only a few of the testimonies that were before the boys. The boys' testimonies are what we're about to get into, and those are the longest.
Yeah.
And honestly, I think Lyle's is longer than Eric's. We're going to start with Lyle. So Lyle gets on the stand, and one of the very first things that he's asked very early on in his testimony was, why did you kill your parents? And he immediately just starts to cry.
Yeah.
And he said, because we were afraid. They start getting into, his past and things like that. And this is just a lot of him recalling things that would happen throughout his childhood. He tells the court that basically sports were his life because that's what his father wanted him to do and it made his father happy. And when he was asked why he wanted to make his father happy, he said, so that he would love me. The very first sport that he was involved in competitively was swimming at age 4. And he testifies that when Lyle was doing swim practice with his dad, sometime between the ages of 6 and 10, he would do what he called training his lungs.
No.
And his father would hold him under the water. And Lyle said that he would fight him to come up to get air. And his father would just hold him down under the water by his head. And that they would do this over and over and over. And to see how long he could stay under without being able to breathe.
No.
He said that he would always be crying when he came up. And every time he cried, it made it worse because his father, both of his parents really, these children were just trained that showing your emotion is weak.
Yeah.
You could not be any weaker ever than when you would cry or show any kind of emotion.
That's horrible.
So anytime that he would come up and he would be crying, it would just make it worse because it would just infuriate his father. He said that they did this a couple of times a week.
That is so awful.
Lyle testified that he hated swimming and that he would become physically ill before any kind of practices or meets, and that sometimes in practices he would do things on purpose to be able to skip and miss. And one of the things that he would do is that he would swim into the wall on purpose so that he could say, oh, I hurt myself.
Yeah, and this started at age 4.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And he would be physically sick, throwing up, telling his parents, mostly his mother, that he didn't want to go.
Yeah.
She would make him go anyway. So the next sport that he played was soccer. And he said that he enjoyed playing soccer. And he played soccer until he was almost 12 years old. But that his father wouldn't allow him to make friends with the kids on the soccer team because then he wouldn't be as competitive. He wasn't allowed to go to, the team dinners or hang out with them afterwards. He couldn't even talk to his teammates on the sidelines of the game because then he was distracted.
Okay.
What was happening?
I'm pretty sure we all played soccer as kids to have friends and social interaction.
And for it to be fun.
Yeah.
Nothing in these boys' childhood was for fun. It was all to be competitive and to be number one and to be the best. And if you were anything but number one or the best, then you were nothing.
Okay. Also, when you're playing soccer, you're supposed to be a team. That is a team sport.
Hello.
Yeah, what the heck?
Yeah. Lyle says that all of the focus from his father was always on him in his dad's eyes, and that he really didn't care about Eric that much when he was younger, that he only cared about what Lyle was doing, and that his father definitely had higher expectations for him than for Eric. At age 13, his father started to control his diet and what he ate, and that his father had read in some book or magazine or whatever about fasting, and that his father would make him fast for tennis tournaments and things like that at 13, basically starving your child.
Yeah, that's the age you need to eat more.
Yeah.
You're a growing child.
So during this conversation about him controlling his diet, he recalled one time after a soccer game, they went to like a deli place, and the man behind the counter had snuck some pastries or donuts or something into a bag for Lyle, just, as a treat because he was a kid.
Yeah.
He comes in with his dad, whatever, and he's like, "Oh, I'll put some, donuts
Something
in here
nice.
for you."
Yeah.
And Lyle said that he knew that his father would not be happy about that. And so he had taken the bag and went outside before his father did, and had taken them out of the bag and was eating them before they got into the car, so that his dad wouldn't see that the man put
had done that.
The stuff in the bag for him. So he was eating them outside of the store, and he said when his dad came out and saw him, he slapped them out of his hand, grabbed him by the neck, pushed him up against the wall, and then punched him in the stomach. He recalls that his mother, this child's mother, used to tell him constantly that he ruined her life and that she never wanted to be pregnant, and that she would scream at him and throw things at him and tell him that he's a bastard and that I wish you were never born. Why can't you be like your brother? She would say things to him like, "Shut up, you're stupid, I hate you." He recalled that at this point, he's trying really hard not to cry. And he said at age 7 was the first time that she told him that she wished he was never born.
That's like second grade.
Baby.
It's first or second grade telling your first or second grader that.
So there were times in his childhood, most of the time, he's pretty much says this happened almost every night, when his father would come home from work and they would have dinner. They always sat at the dinner table. They always had dinner as a family. Family's a strong word for this.
Yeah.
And that basically his father would just drill him about his day. He wouldn't talk to Eric. If Eric said something, he would just
be gone, would you?
Yeah. He would either ignore him or tell him to shut up or slap him. Just
be quiet.
Yeah. He was talking to Lyle.
Yeah.
He wasn't talking to anybody else. And they would have these lessons where his father would first tell him to recount his day from the very beginning to the very end, mostly wanting to know about tennis and how that went and whatever. But also that they would he would quiz them on ancient history and things like that. And if Lyle got any of the answers wrong, his father would throw him outside and lock the door, and that he would stay outside for hours as punishment. And this didn't matter what time of year it was, how cold it was outside. He would just lock him out. And he says that he would just go sit in the doghouse and just be in there if it was cold, because that was the only way he could get warm. And this happened all the way up until the point where he was 17 years old. So almost his whole life.
Yeah.
One time he said that he and Jose were in the living room. Eric walked in just wanting to be included in the conversation, whatever it was that they were doing. And as he walked in the room, Jose just backhanded him across the room and told him to shut up and go away. Lyle said that after this specific instance, that he had like a bruise on like the whole side of his face.
Oh, no.
From just being swatted by his father. Lyle also testifies that when the boys were young, his father would show them pornographic movies or films. And when he was asked about them, he said that he could recall some of the details of some of these because most of them were very violent sex acts in
like
these
BDSM
movies.
type shit.
Just like gang rapes and things like that.
Yeah.
Like just dark.
Hard.
I mean, you shouldn't be showing your child porn anyway, but like basically like the worst kind.
Yeah.
Just horrible. What is going through his brain?
I want to know what makes you so unhappy in life that you come home from work and are just god
Want to beat your
awful
children
to everybody.
Yeah. He also says that sometimes whenever they would like have company over, his dad would just like put one on just as shock factor, he said. He said, I think he just did it for
fun.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
There is a point in the testimony where his attorney, Jill Lansing, brings up a envelope to the witness stand. And it is a envelope from 1976 from Eric's 5th or 6th birthday. I think his 6th birthday. And it's like photos. It's like developed photos from a birthday party. And it's got his mom's handwriting on it that says Eric's birthday. So at this time, Lyle was 8 years old and she's showing him the photos and she's like, do you recognize this photo? Do you recognize this photo? You know, who is that? And it's like them with their cousins and it's a birthday party.
Yeah.
There was also 2 photos, one of each boy, one of each brother, naked in the bathtub from only like the waist down. And the reason that she had brought this out was because Lyle was, recounting his childhood and things. And he had mentioned that he remembered that his father used to take photos of them when they were in the bath or when they were changing. But like it was always, their faces were never in it. But he had never seen the photos, but he remembers it happening.
He remembers them being taken.
Yeah, but never saw them.
Yeah.
So this was the first time that he had seen those.
How did he react?
He was upset. I mean, he was pretty much like, he was asked, do you know who this is? And one of them, he was like, yeah, that's me. And the other one, he was like, yeah, that's Eric. And she was like, well, how do you know that one's Eric? And he said, well, he's got a birthmark on his wrist, on this left wrist or whatever.
And it's in that picture.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
So there's, proof of that.
Yeah.
Starting when Lyle was about 6 years old, Jose would tell Lyle stories about how men who went into battle all throughout history would have sexual relationships with each other as they prepared for battle, like Greek.
That is a true fact. Yeah.
Yeah. And he would have Lyle read history books about Greek soldiers having sex with each other before battle. And that the same principle was applied to sports as well.
No.